when we first started talking, it kind of became clear that you accidentally started a 300-person SaaS company out of your real estate business. You were building tools for sales and lead gen and property acquisition, various things you're doing in your real estate businesses. And I don't, from what I gathered in our early conversation, you didn't have any intention to build a software company, but essentially you accidentally built this 9-figure business. And so you ended up shutting down the real estate companies, going all in on software. Prime example, we talk about this a lot in the software industry. Be your own customer, so be your own best customer, and that's you're a prime example of that.
Cash flow. Cash flow. Did you clear your cash flow?
I have Jesse Burrell here from BatchService. What's really interesting about you, Jesse, is that when we first started talking, it kind of became clear that you accidentally started a 300-person SaaS company out of your real estate business. You were building tools for sales and lead gen and property acquisition, various things you're doing in your real estate businesses. And I don't, from what I gathered in our early conversation, you didn't have any intention to build a software company, but essentially you accidentally built this 9-figure business. And so you ended up shutting down the real estate companies, going all in on software. Prime example, we talk about this a lot in the software industry. Be your own customer, so be your own best customer. And that's, you're a prime example of that. Love it. It's awesome. At what point for you did the light bulb go off where you said, hey, I got to ditch this real estate thing I'm doing and just go all in on software and SaaS?
Yeah, great question. And thanks again for having me on. And honestly, it was just when we really kept growing and seeing, hyper growth in that user count that just kept ticking up. And, we had a owners meeting. There's 3 of us that own the business. And we kind of had to make the decision is, do we want to compete against the community or support it? And we all wanted to support it. And I've seen a lot of friends and a lot of people, especially small business entrepreneurs, they have too many businesses. And when you do a bunch of different things, you can't build anything to be big. And we wanted to go one way or the other. And I felt like the best way to really grow something, what I was most passionate about was, building products for, what I did in my real estate business, because it was so fun. That's what got me from, basically being a waiter at a restaurant or, working outside services at a golf course to becoming, an entrepreneur, was that real estate. So I was like, I wanted to build the tools and help people go through what I did. Because a lot of people started off as a side hustle for real estate investing. And it changed my life so much that I thought it'd be great to be a part of it, because I always wanted to coach and love coaching and love helping, knowing that we're building something very special. And especially knowing myself using it was, I don't know, it felt like the right thing to do. And a few years later, it definitely was the right financial decision, but it was also the right decision that fulfills me personally and my partners. And, having so many great people that work with us has been basically a dream come true, to be honest with you.
That's awesome, man. I love that. So I started out in food service too, right out of high school. I was doing like waiting tables at Applebee's and crap like that. And I didn't go to college. I saw in some of your social content, you talk about college and how you went, but you didn't really apply the skills or learn too much from it. But that's awesome. I think that's a good grind to do early on. But how did you why real estate? Like what just got you to just think of real estate as a career trajectory for you? Was it by accident or?
That was by accident too. Kind of. One of my good friends, she was a bartender at a restaurant. I was a server. And I think in 2010, she got connected with a guy that was out of California that, came to Phoenix because Phoenix got hit so hard. And he started
what, in 2008 area or time frame?
Well, yeah, he started in 2010, but you got hit so hard in the Great Recession that properties, they lost like 60-70% in Phoenix. So what he did is he was Israeli, and him and a bunch of his friends, he started buying all these properties and then basically wholesaling them for a little bit more. He'd go to auctions, go to pre-foreclosure, short sales, make maybe $10,000 on them. And then property manage them. So then he'd rent them, lease them out. And then at the same time, he was also flipping some of those homes too. So she started getting into that and she thought it was super fun. And she's like, hey, we need people to help us find more properties. So basically, she brought me on and I started doing a little bit of property management fulfillment. And then I was mostly looking for opportunities for him to specifically fix and flip homes, and learning that skill set really helped me to go out on my own. So I soon after got my license, and then I could identify good deals. So I started building a network of investors to sell on market deals to. And then I soon after learned about off market deals. And that's when the real estate investing journey really started to prosper. I actually partnered with the young lady that brought me on. Her name's Danielle. Three of us ended up forming a wholesale company. And before we knew it, we were off and running, running our first business and, learning a lot. So it was really fun. It happened fast too. So it was pretty cool.
That's like the trick that I hear in like flipping and real estate investing. You have to figure out the property acquisition strategy. That's like the top, competitive advantage or, secret to being profitable from what I can tell. I have a few friends that flip in Philly and, they kind of like the off-market deals here, I think is the key. And then also finding the properties on the fringe. Like there's this neighborhood in Philly called Fishtown. 15 years ago, it was, probably the average value of a house was $200,000-$300,000. And it was sort of like considered like a bad neighborhood. And now their houses are like over $1 million for a half dilapidated, 2,000 square foot townhouse is like $1 million on the market. It's pretty wild, but like the people who saw that, I think we call them urban pioneers in Philly is the term for it. Like those urban pioneers who saw that early and bought those shells for cheap and then, rented them and eventually sold them for 4 or 5x, made so much money.
Right.
Is there something like that in Phoenix and other cities, or is that more unique to Philly?
No, we have that as well. We've had a few pockets that went absolutely crazy as well. But as you speak to, and that's basically what our software does. It helps. We have all these different data points, and you're able to chop up nationwide data. And we have a lot of distress indicators on homeowners. Are they absentees at a vacant home? Have they owned it for X amount of years? Do you have this much equity? And you could build your own list and then start going and marketing to those people or reaching out to see, they're more likely to potentially want to sell in certain positions. And you hit it on the head. It's, off market, it's always going to be better than on market. It just depends on the homeowner situation. Do you want to sell for convenience, ease, and make it simple and not make any repairs? Or do you want to sell, on the MLS? So it's just another sub market of, real estate. And we're lucky enough to build out some pretty cool tools to have a lot of people have, success, because at the end of the day, it's, you make all your money. And this is what my first boss told me, and mentor taught me, was you make it on the purchase. That's where you make your money. You make it or you lose it on your purchase. If you buy bad, you can't fix it for cheaper to make more profits. You have to buy right, and you have to be disciplined enough to buy right. So that was something I learned the very, very beginning was, don't be desperate and always make sure that you buy right.
All right. So tell me one where you got your ass handed to you on it. Just spent way too much and like lost money and, everything went wrong.
It's never actually happened. I've had
never happened once.
I've always been pretty disciplined. The worst I've ever personally lost on a deal was like $2,000.
Wow, that's crazy.
And that was because me and my now fiance had a very horrible miscommunication on the exit strategy of the property. Is we got an Airbnb together. So I added a 4th bedroom, remodeled it a certain way to get maximum revenues. And I was thinking she was managing it. She was thinking I was supposed to manage it. So we ended up having to just sell it because neither of us had the time at that time. And I ended up having to take like a $2,000 loss because I spent so much money on the remodel. And I spent a little bit more because it was in a great location for vacation rentals. So I was willing to spend a little bit more because of just the returns that we would get as a B&B. And it was frustrating because it was like a pretty big remodel. It took months. It took a lot of time. And I ended up losing money. So that wasn't the funnest one, but I've had a few friends that have had, 6-figure losses and multiple 6-figure losses by taking big swings. But I've always been the one that's slow and steady. I was like, I don't need to get rich fast. Like I'm good. And I'll do it slow and steady.
Yeah, interesting. I have heard stories of, plywood, lumber getting stolen, and contractors taking money and not doing work, and like markets changing quickly, hard money lending going wrong where you can't get permits fast enough, and then you end up paying a crap load of interest on your initial hard money loans, and that's pretty amazing. How many flips have you done total?
Hundreds. But
Wow.
so and this was over a lot of years, but as I said, all the things you're saying are completely true. So my friends that have lost a lot of money on deals, it's bad contractors to where they run off and steal money and do stuff like that. And the other thing was big flips with a lot of permitting. I always stayed below the median income house pricing, and I would never do a flip that cost me more than $50,000. So I never pulled permits. So I had very strict criteria of how I bought. If I came across those properties that are much bigger, that's where wholesaling would come into play. I would contract it and then sell it to another investor that specializes in that. So I'm making money on the front end, and then I'm done with it. So I just had a very strict way I did things. I've worked with the same contractor for 10 years. I could trust him. He's like family to me. He's a good friend of mine. And I didn't want to use a bunch of crews. So I'd always just be doing 1 to 2 properties at a time. I just never was one to try and run too fast. As I said, I was just slow and steady. And what I know and what I'm good at was that. And I stuck to it. And that's what a lot of real estate investors get into trouble, is when they're trying to see what everyone else is doing and how everyone makes money. Get great at something and just be proud that you're great at that. You don't need to be great at every single aspect of, being a real estate investor.
I got one quick side tangent story that's hilarious to me, and then I want to move on to the software stuff. But
Right. I can talk about real estate forever.
Yeah. So my same friend I was talking about earlier that flips in Philly, he's moving into this new neighborhood called Strawberry Mansion, which is probably the next fish town in 10 years from now, but it's still definitely the hood now. Yeah. And so he's got 2 or 3 properties going there, and one of them, he buys like lots and builds on them, like 4 or 5 unit buildings.
Nice.
And one of them is under construction right now, and he showed up to the job site like a month or 2 ago, and his generator and a bunch of his tools and plywood were all missing. But there was a shopping cart there. Someone put all the stuff in a shopping cart, and they put a box of nails with a hole in it in the shopping cart and wheeled it back to their house, and they left like a breadcrumb trail, like a Hansel and Gretel trail of nails all the way back to their house. So my friend's an idiot. He's like unarmed and like follows the breadcrumb trails back to the house. And I mean, this is some real balls. I mean, he literally walks, it's like a abandoned house with the squatters stole his stuff. So he walks into this abandoned house with the squatters and like gets in an argument with them and just takes the stuff back and leaves. And I'm like, man, I'm surprised you didn't get stabbed or something. That's just totally like the, kind of like the brazen, just like what stroll right up in there. That cracks me up.
Yeah, you should have protection there. But a lot of the times they're just taking stuff and they don't want any trouble. I've dealt with crazy situations when, buying these off-market deals. There's a reason why people aren't selling them on the market, and it's some type of physical, financial, or time-bound stress. And there's been some wild things or bad tenants. And but we can move to the software, because I could tell these stories. I have way too many of them, and they're quite interesting though.
Yeah, so let's talk about the software. That's my space. I love software. How in software, it's always, if you can hit this, make it 10x better and 10x cheaper, you've just nailed it. And when companies grow at the speed that yours grows, usually that's when you make it 10x better and 10 times cheaper for the user base. And it's kind of like a game changer. A recent example of that is Jasper AI. I don't know if you're familiar, but they generate content using the GPT-3 machine learning model. And, it's like 10 times faster, 10 times cheaper than content writers.
Right.
So is that what you did in your industry? Did you make it 10x faster or better and 10x cheaper for the real estate investment community?
I wouldn't, not really, honestly. What we did was there's a lot of tools that there's a lot of different software tools that you have to use to make your cog work. And we built a bunch of them to work together within BatchService. So actually, yeah, because we're much cheaper as if you condense all the services into one. It was more just time, and I guess you're making it faster because they're able to use the tool faster. So yes, I guess the short answer, the way you put it, is
But if you're out banging doors and like dropping off flyers and you're
right.
trying to acquire
Yeah.
properties the old-fashioned way, cold calling. I mean, what does it cost to do that versus what does it cost to use your platform to aggregate the deals for you?
Right. Yeah. No, it's probably like 100 times faster and a lot cheaper. So yeah, it's where you could aggregate the data, and then cold calling we have a power dialer solution to where our datas talk to each other and you're able to do a lot of different things. So we just that was the thing when I was real estate investing, was it was really hard to have all these tools, a place to host your data, place to know what properties you've already went after, what you're targeting, how you're targeting it. And once we built a tool to where people could use it and it was simple to use, that's when it really started taking off, and having enablement tools in there where you're able to text, you're able to call, you're able to go drive for dollars virtually using Google, and having a place to store your data and look through your data, and VAs help you with that. And we just created a solution that was so much better than anyone else in our industry at the time. And then we also had some of the big coaches in the industry that were using it, and it was helping their businesses grow. So they promoted the heck out of it, and it just caught fire, honestly, in the industry. And before we knew it, we were off and running, and we were just trying to keep up with demand and make sure that we could give the right customer experience as people were coming on. And that was the hardest part at the beginning, was just, I always said we were customer obsessed. So I wanted to make sure a lot of our competitors didn't have sales reps or didn't have account managers or CSMs that were actually reaching out, making sure that they're understanding the system, using it. And that's something that I was passionate about, that I wanted to make sure that people were staying on and people were having success. And that was kind of one of our differentiators, is the other software has kind of just automated it with the automated journey. I wanted a human touch because real estate is so complex and there's so much that goes into it. I think that you need to have someone there besides a video to watch to answer questions, because it's just not black and white. Real estate, there's tons of gray.
So I have a friend who has a SaaS company in the automotive space, and one of the things that he built into his application is all these triggers that alert the CSM team. Like if there should be a certain number of purchase orders on his platform generated every day, or there's a high likelihood that the customer is headed to churn. It's like a 90% predictability that they'll churn within a month if they stop generating X amount of purchase orders per day. Mm-hmm. But if you see it happen like the day they stop doing it, or within like 2 days or 3 days, if they don't generate it within 2 or 3 days, you have the CSM reach out and like figure out what's going on and troubleshoot. Or if they click through the same thing in a loop too many times, then that generates potentially like different triggers like that, where if you see these patterns from the customers, it alerts the CSM team, so they're proactive about reaching out, as opposed to waiting for them to churn and asking what happened and getting a bullshit answer, or or just trying to wait for them to reach out with a problem. Do you guys do anything like that, or do you have any kind of like proactive CSM strategies?
Yes, and it was mostly on a touch scale at the beginning, because we didn't have the tools, or I didn't have the leadership to build that out. That's so funny you're talking about that. That's actually like what we're working on now, is identifying churn predictability and having triggers, so we're able to reach out quicker. So for us, it's if they haven't logged in for X amount of days, because they should be generating leads and doing these things. So like now we have triggers if someone signs up and they haven't logged in. We have triggers of CSMs to call, or we have triggers both ways. So detractors and promoters. If someone's doing it, enjoying it, talking good about it, then it's reaching out to them, seeing if they needed to upgrade or want to expand their business, or if they want to leave a review, or if they'll even hop on, Batch TV behind me and talk about the success that they've had. So we have it actually both ways to where we're triggering on both sides for the CSMs to reach out.
That's cool. Do you guys do any mailers for either buying properties or to existing what would you say, like people basically trying to sell their properties? So for people who are trying to buy properties, you're mailing to the sellers or the potential sellers.
Yeah, we do have direct mail to where you could build your list, create a campaign, upload that, and then send it out through our software. So that's, as I said, you want to identify the people that you're looking to buy from. So we have, as I said, you could text, you could call, you could send direct mail, and then you could also build ways to go door knock for people that want to door knock or go door to door and talk to people. So we have as many.
How does that work? The door knocking part?
I mean, people will aggregate lists and then create a route and then go, knock on doors and see if people want to sell. It's just like,
like you guys crowdsource like gig economy, the door knockers, or is that for
No, we don't do that. We our customers will do that.
Okay.
I just provide the software now. I'm not sending mailers to anyone.
Okay. All right. I got you. That's cool. So I saw on your LinkedIn, it was like a really distinct hard cut. It was like July 2018, real estate business over, batch services is on. But I'm sure it was like more of a gradual transition where you're building these tools pre-July 2018 inside of your real estate businesses, and then you're using them for yourself. And then at some point you got customers to use them. And then at some point you're like, holy crap, we're making way more money on this, so it's time to just go all in here. Was that July 2018 when that holy crap happened, or what was like the timeline and progression there?
2020. It was actually right before COVID, which was ironic. One, because it was COVID-19 was very weird at first, and then it exploded. So I see all my friends just going ballistic, the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, when the market just caught fire. But no, we made the decision right before we were at that inflection point to where, we were still very profitable and doing a great job on the investing side of things in that business. But in investing, it's tough because a lot of the people you hire, they want to be you, they don't want to work for you. So it's a churn machine. And we started churning through people again. And at that point, we're like, I don't want to rehire and rebuild and do this again. And our passion and focus was really starting to go towards batch, to where we wouldn't have been great owners or bosses to the people when we're not all in on that side. So we just made the decision to slowly shut it down. And then the people that were left over on the real estate investing team, those are great people that wanted to stay to come into batch service and then help the customer, because they did what all these people were doing. So I still have 3, 4, 5 people that worked for me on the investing side that are still over here on batch service, hanging out and been able to watch.
Awesome.
So
what percent, when you shut down the real estate, what percent of your personal income was batch service versus the flipping business?
It was probably like 2 to 1. It wasn't like
2 to 1 batch services or batch service.
Yeah, it wasn't like some insane amount where we're making a fortune here and nothing here. It was a hard decision. It took us about 6 to 8 months to get there and we knew how to keep making money. And then also acquiring.
But if you're already 2 to 1 though, like, this software scales, and like real estate kind of doesn't, it maybe slowly scales, but
at the same time, when acquiring a lot of rental properties and that long-term wealth and finding those great off-market deals, that comes from owning your own business, not buying it from someone else. So that was kind of the hard part is, if we ever find deals now, we're finding it through realtors or finding it through other investors that are going to mark it up to us when we know that we could go source it ourselves and get it for cheaper. So that was for long-term wealth, that was the harder part for me, was knowing that I'm not going to be able to see these really good deals and be able to keep them and put them in my portfolio anymore. So it kind of was what it was, but I don't regret the decision. I hope when and if we exit on batch, that there's a good chance that I'm going to go back in and start buying huge multifamily and get back into real estate to grow further. So I'm curious to see what happens, because the evolution and the cycle of this whole thing may end up being quite funny.
It's like full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that a bunch of times. It's funny though, man. I know a ton of people who exit, and they all they make like life-changing money. They don't need to work again, and then they're just they all go through the same pattern where it's like they have all this time, they go travel, do a bunch of fun stuff for like a month or two, and then they get back and they're just like, holy shit, I'm bored. I don't know what to do.
Right.
And it's immediately head first back into something else or like 10 things.
Right.
Yeah, cool.
Agree. I think the funnest part of this whole entire thing is the purpose and the journey and the people that we get to help. Like the best thing, that's the thing I'm most proud of ever since I started becoming an entrepreneur, is last year we got a 2022 best place to work. And that's not an easy award to get. That shows the level of commitment that we have top down to treating people right and people being committed to a vision and a product. So it's the purpose is the part. So the exiting is, we'll see when and if that happens, but that's not why I do this. It's just a part of it. Like, once we could only get it to a certain place, like, then I have to do a duty to the whole entire team to have someone take over and grow it to the next evolution. And until that day comes, I'm happy to kick ass here and do as much as I can.
How big do you think BatchService could be if you guys IPO'd and tried to eat the world for real estate software? How big do you think? Is it like Appfolio level or bigger, or how big do you think it could get?
I don't know. It depends on the direction that we take it, but I think staying private, there's no reason why we couldn't sell for $1 to $3 billion before someone wanted to go do whatever they wanted to do with it. We don't want to go public. I'd rather grow this and sell it to a strategic partner.
So you'd have to be doing like 150 million to probably 150 million to get a probably like 1 to 1.5 billion valuation. So you might be doing like 400 million or something in revenue.
Yeah. And I think we already have a path to over 100 that I see very clearly. So, and that's not even touching some of the personas and some of the other industries that we want to go after, because there's a lot of overlap between real estate investors, home service, solar, agents we don't touch quite too much yet, pool guys. Like, there's a lot of ways to where the way people want to get in touch with homeowners and chop that data up for their specific industry or niche, we're just finally dabbling and wanting to go really into those different personas. And people are getting excited because a lot of these other industries do it very, very old school and archaic ways. So the toughest part there will be the education. But once we could educate and it could catch fire, I think we could have some big growth over the next couple of years as well.
That's really awesome. I was thinking at first when you're like 1 to 3 billion, I'm like, who would acquire for that price? Who would acquire? It would have to be like private equity to buy flipper SaaS business. But when you get into all the other industries and you've got these huge like Angie's lists and these other Zillows and like software Goliaths that would potentially be a fit for an acquisition target like that.
There's also think of like the Fidelities. There's a couple big title companies that have bought some places in my space that want that customer base to where they could use them for title. They could use their data for their title reps to give out, and it just kind of grows. There's also, think of the CoreLogics, the Black Knights, the big data aggregators. If we become a big enough thorn in some of their sides, that they may just want to gobble us up and then use some of our operating systems, to their big group of people on the B2B side. So we have some places that we're trying to maneuver and see what they're wanting and what they're looking for. But at the end of the day, right now, all we're trying to do is just help our customers grow their businesses and find other opportunities in new verticals to where we could help help people grow their businesses as well. And then we're obviously trying to get a little bit more downstream in some bigger B2B plays and other companies, because we do have Batch Data, which is a software to where we have, big data licensing and API licensing. There are other softwares that need some of the stuff that we've built out on our API. We could plug into them and help power their software. So we have that side that we've just started dabbling in. Last year we launched that, and we're finally starting to get some real momentum there with some of the ways and positioning that we've done things as well. So that's what I'm truly most excited about is that side is going to be really fun to dive into these next couple of years.
Cool. There's a video online. You can probably find it if you search for it. I think it's 1997 or 1998. An interview with Jeff Bezos when he was a book website, and small. Right when they first started. I think it was pre-IPO, and the interviewer asked him, "So how big can this really get? Like, how are you going to compete with Barnes and Nobles?" And he goes, I don't know. I think e-commerce is the future. I think maybe someday this could be $100 million company." Do you think that could be do you think this interview could be that video for you where you're like, yeah, maybe I'll sell it for like $1 to $3 billion. And then, 10, 20 years later, it's like, $1 trillion market cap or something. Is that in your cards at all, or?
It could be. I mean, I'm crazy enough to want to do it. And, they say, big data is the new oil. So it just depends on strategy and what we acquire and how you pivot. Because, if let's say we did get to $1 trillion, what we are today would be absolutely nothing like we'd be in 5, 10, 20 years. It's companies that grow and stay ahead of the curve have to evolve quickly and acquire or have strategic partnerships or be ahead of the curve to where, that's a possibility. I like to say I dream big, so I never say anything's out of the question. But right now we kind of just have a roadmap, and we're trying to figure out how we could disrupt as much as possible. And, I'm like, how do we stop evolving and start being more revolutionary instead of evolutionary? And that's what I've been looking for. And that's where a lot of my focus is on, is road mapping, planning, and what's the next big thing? Like, where's the next big thing to where we could be early, but not too early to where adoption's not there yet. And that's what I've been looking for too. Like, we have a lot of great stuff. We have a lot of great opportunities, but like, I'm looking for that next revolutionary thing that we could really go take market share. And I have no idea what it is. No idea.
Well, I think you kind of alluded to it a little bit. You started talking about, moving into the home services space. So you're pretty much a suite of 4 products now. Early in our last conversation, you talked about how you have like these 4 separate products that are being rolled up into one, and then like kind of one business, sort of one like platform. And then, so that's where you're at today, servicing the flipper industry. So like the house flipping, real estate investment industry. And then there's like this big expansion opportunity for, you said roofers and, home service providers and plumbers, whatever, like whoever's servicing the home. I have to imagine though, there's so many other ancillary businesses, like realtors is one you mentioned. And you've got like these big realtor outfits that probably would be, high value customers, but to integrate into their realtor sort of like franchise offering. But
there's title companies, lenders as well, title companies. There's a lot. It's basically any company that wants, to use property homeowner information and data that they're trying to market to. We have a million different ways to aggregate and all these different, ways that people can manipulate the data to find out, okay, what homeowners do I want to help and how do I reach out to them? That's basically what we are, as a property intelligence and solution. We just started with real estate investors, but there's a lot of different places. But if you try and be good at everything, you're great at nothing too. So there's a balancing act of like, each different vertical or persona does stuff a little bit differently to where you can't just try and go after everyone. You really have to nail down and get that product market fit. And definitely the next one right now is in home service for sure.
So during the pandemic, I tried the suburbs for a year, and my wife and I moved out. We bought a house in the suburbs, and clearly didn't work out. We're city people, but I digress. While we were there, we needed a new roof, so we got a new roof installed, and the roofer comes out and just had some app where he just basically took a satellite image of the roof, and then the application quoted the roof for him. He just put in what type of materials and what color shingle and how many man hours or whatever, and then it just quoted all the material costs, and estimated the man hours of the the labor and whatnot. I think it was called Eagle Eye or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. I don't recall the exact name of the app, but that was pretty cool. And is that sort of some of the products that you could see yourself getting into, or is that too far away from BatchService?
No, that's something we're already actually working on. So there is products that have that, and that's something that we want to have for that industry. But what those products don't have is how do you get in front of that homeowner without an inbound lead? So if you're wanting to do any outbound or any outreach, that's where we would be different. But we want to have some of those things too, to where we already actually have the technology to do that and have that built into our API. We just have to build it and put it on the roadmap as a feature. But that's so cool to where, so think about this. If you're doing outbound, you're able to use our software, and then you could just call the person, and through our technology, you don't even have to go to the appointment. You could actually do it all from a phone call.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Speeds up sales and quoting time. And the only thing you might lose there, and I'm curious your opinion, is the relationship with the homeowner and the ability to, kind of have if they're getting 4 quotes and 3 are just virtual and they don't really meet the person and they don't get a vibe, and then they have one person they meet in person that's got a vibe and they vibe with that person, the 3 virtuals might lose it. Do you think?
I agree. I think there's 2 ways to do it. Is, you try and close it over the phone, and if you can't, then someone goes out. But at least that's a much more qualified or vetted lead, to where when you do go out, you're going to close. You're not going to do the dog and pony show. Someone's already done that to you. So think of just being able to use like that person as a SDR or BDR on that phone call that potentially could close. And then if they can't, then that's when you send the sales rep. But it's a much more vetted lead at that point, to where, okay, this is where we're at. This is maybe where they have notes on where their questions are, and then let that person have some information to go build the rapport and go get that book of business. I think belly to belly is always the best thing, but people are changing, and some people just don't want to meet you. Some people do. So I guess it just depends on the person or the client.
I love the belly to belly saying. It's always it always makes me have this visual in my head of like 2 guys, like 2 big beer belly guys in a bar with like like their shirts over their belly button, like doing a what do you call it when you like do the belly
Yeah.
bumping chests.
Funny.
Cracks me up every time, that visual. But all right, I want to pitch you an idea, and like just tear it down, or let me know if it's any good. But if it's bad, just say shut up, Brian. Don't do real estate. But so I've seen this in like industries, especially with like data connectivity, like ISPs, FiOS, Comcast sort of thing. Having like an army of door knockers. And what if there's an army of door knockers that sells everything? So it's like tree services, roofing, plumbing, like just all the services. Also, they're trying to acquire properties in certain neighborhoods as well. And it's like you guys built this like gig economy, like Uber style or like DoorDash style army of door knockers, and train them on different things to sell. And it essentially created like a blanket strategy to just go out and like tackle neighborhoods one at a time, and then sell that as a service to home services or to real estate investors or whatever. Is that a business that could have merit, or is that just like too much that would create too much headache and overhead?
I like the idea, but why not just do it with calling and then selling the leads? If I were going to do anything, that's probably what I would do is aggregate all those big lists, hire an army of virtual assistants, not door knockers, and start lead generating for each of the industries that we know very well, to where we have a tool that could say, hey, here, if you want to do it, here, have your outbound motion. But we also have a service to where we provide leads for you. If I were going to ever do something like that, which I have done in the past, for the real estate investing side, because I feel like that's scalable, and that's a way to do things is vetting leads, creating leads, because I did lead generation, and then for each industry, just understanding those ones. But I think it'd be more effective to have an army of people cold calling, outreach. There'd be multitude of things, not just cold calling, but direct mail, a bunch of different ways to do it, and then just sell leads.
So you've done that for home services too, or mostly for buying off market deals?
Mostly for buying off market deals, but the motion's not that much different. Understand what they want. All I have to do is go build lists and get in front of the homeowners and identify who's most likely to do X, and then use our software to build that. And then we could do some ML as we learn this stuff. And then,
I love that, man. I'm like super into the ML space these days, but curious, what are like the KPIs on that? So how many, like, what's your conversion rate? How many touch points on average do you need to make to get a conversion? So if you have like 100 prospects, what percentage will turn into an interested seller? And how many touch points do you have to hit each of those interested sellers to get them to, express interest?
It depends. So you're talking about for like a real estate investor?
Yeah, let's start there. And I'm curious, like, just how much like horsepower it would take to build a, sort of like this virtual lead gen, outfit.
God. It'd take a lot. So per person, I would say you could get, on industry average, you're going to get maybe 2 warm leads a day. Let's just use cold calling for an example. 2 a day. You need about 30 leads, warm leads, to close one, but you have to build a pipeline. You never know when that's going to close. So technically, a cold caller should get you 2 deals a month. Hypothetically,
about like two deals that are a good buy, essentially.
Yeah, a good buy. So I wouldn't be buying the homes. I'd just be selling the leads. So then you'd have to reverse engineer. Okay, typically in this market, what type of profit are they going to make from buying this home, or what does that number mean to them? And then I'd have to see how much would I sell those leads for to make sure that they're still making a nice, healthy return on investment. Because I know a lot of people that just provide the cold callers for someone and we'll give them the leads. But like, if I were ever to do it, I would want to literally vet the leads and say, here are your warm leads, just go close them. You know what I mean? So it would probably be more. That's why I don't want to do it. It's just like, I don't want to create an agency and have 1,000 more.
Yeah, it's basically what that becomes as an agency. Because like, how many would you sell it to? Just one real estate investor in that case, or how many? You sell it to like 2 or 3 or something, or 4?
It just depends on how big you want to try and do it. Did you want to make it exclusive to where you're only having 2 or 3 people per big market, or can anyone do it and you're just selling the leads? I mean, the smartest.
I think that's almost a newsletter business. If you create like a newsletter and then just send it to everyone gets it, and as many people can subscribe to it as they want. And I don't know. What do you think about that? And just basically have a list of like people, addresses, or whatever that are interested, and then you create. I don't know. Maybe you create the intro somehow. I don't know, but that might, like, a data email, like a once a day or once a week email.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of ways you could go a lot of different routes. We're just trying to stay ultra focused. Where we're at. I love these hypotheticals because I do think about them, but the last thing I really want to do is go create an army of doing lead generation. If I were to do that, I'd probably buy a business and then that had opportunity and scale it. I don't want to go build it from scratch. I want something that had good SOPs and something. But that's not our core business. I don't want to go do that right now, but I would never say never. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of opportunity there too, for sure.
Yeah. I love riffing on just different business ideas in all different industries. But I agree with you though, man. Focus is always the best, and that's my problem, is that I'll just see all these different things and kind of go in different directions. But like ideation overload. But I appreciate that you have a vision and stay focused on it. All right. So you bootstrapped your company, transitioned in full time to it, shut down the other real estate businesses in 2020, but you've been building the products inside of your real estate business previously. You've got a lot of lessons learned, obviously not coming out of the software space and then going in, head first, diving into the deep end of software and data. One of the things you said to me is that focusing on talking less about what went right and more about what went wrong in the journey. And like, what were those lessons learned? Like what were the biggest, if you could pick out three of your biggest, most painful lessons, what were they?
Biggest would probably be not just coming where we come from, having it was a much more commission based, and there wasn't salaries and W-2s, and real estate investing was different, was like understanding the value. You get what you pay for. So being more open to bigger salaries, knowing that people could make bigger impacts. We were trying to be, we're penny smart, dollar stupid, if that makes sense, with some of our hires of like, oh well, they're way cheaper and they're almost as good, or I think they could be almost as good, when that's not true. Like when you get the most talented, they know their worth. So it's just hiring the right people more quickly was probably one of the biggest mistakes. And another big mistake was we had quite a few evolutions of growing and learning and just getting better, as a software company, with SOP systems, processes, how we do things. And unfortunately, we outgrew people that weren't, we hire people that weren't software people either, because we weren't, and probably not repositioning them or getting off them quicker. It cost us time. It didn't cost us too much money. It didn't hurt us too bad, but it cost us time to grow exponentially and do things and move quicker. And those were some of the bigger mistakes that happened early with us, for sure.
Were you obsessive in the early days about the product and how it worked and the nuance and the details of it?
My partner oversees product, and he's pretty freaking smart. I was always obsessed with customer feedback and making sure they were happy, and feeding him product roadmap ideas to make sure that everyone could be nothing but excited, and just knowing that we're releasing and we're building and we're pouring into the product and we're reinvesting our money. Like that was what I really focused on probably the first couple of years, and just selling the shit out of it, to be honest with you, making sure the sales team understood what our competition were, what we were, how we were different, how we cared differently, and how we wanted to see success from all of our customers. And we just ingrained that into our sales, CS, and AM team, was make sure that they're succeeding. Like it's about the customer. If they don't succeed, we don't succeed. If they don't succeed, they're churning or they're canceling. Like this is a mutually beneficial relationship, and we both have to be on the same page.
Yeah, that's good. I just had Mike Krupit on. He was the most recent episode that went live. He was on a couple of weeks ago, and he's done like 8 companies. A couple went public. Couple were pretty large market caps. I don't know exactly how large, but I think for sure in the 9 figures, if not 10. And I don't want to misquote, but it was big market caps. And that was one of his lessons learned, was not to, one of his later companies, he went right into CEO mode right from the beginning, and didn't have an obsession. He hired smart people that he thought were the right people, but he wasn't like the irrational, obsessive, tyrant founder who was, wanted to have hands in every single detail for the first 50 employees or so, until it was like a, proven market fit business that then could scale like, an enterprise. And I think that's, I've seen that a bunch of times where, CEOs, executives come out of big companies and try to go right into CEO mode or right into executive mode. And it's almost always an indicator that the company is going to fail. From what I've seen, and Mike's learnings agreed with that. So I think maybe, for you guys, like being in the real estate industry, being your own customer, like that obsession over the products, and to your point, if it's not a mutual win-win with the customer, then it's you both fail. They fail. They invest money and trust in you guys, and then you invest in acquiring the customer and then losing the relationship, and probably not, if you don't hit your J curve on it, maybe you've lost money on the customer account, and then it's a lose-lose. So it has to be a win-win, or that churn happens. So it sounds like your partner was probably that like obsessive tyrant over the product.
We both were in. To your point, it's so funny you just brought that up. Is I was talking with my partner and we were just riffing in the last couple of weeks of like, if we were to sell, what would purpose be? What would this be? Like, do we want to sell? Do we not want to sell? And so we're just doing hypotheticals if we did. And it's so funny because I brought this up and I was like, honestly, let's say we were to sell. And then I was like, we're crazy enough to just try and go do something crazy all over again. And I looked at him and I go, we have to bootstrap it. And he goes, why? And I was like, because if we're not obsessed and in it and get the product market fit, it's not going to work. So it's so funny you brought that up because that's where my head went. I was like, you can't just go to the top and say, go do this while we're creating product market fit. Like, I have to be crazy passionate about whatever we're building and why we're building it. Bring those people in, inspire them, get them on the vision quest with you. And then you all go knock it out together. But like, especially those, I'd rather burn my own money up and fail than go just say, hey, I have an idea, I'm going to raise money. That's just not how I am. I'd rather burn it up and lose it, trying to create product market fit. Now, this next time I'd maybe use my money, get the product market fit, then raise and go hyper grow it instead of bootstrapping it like we did. Because I think we could be further along if we did get money to where we are today. But I'd be devalued, with my equity, and I'd have a boss, which I don't like either. So I probably bootstrap it anyways. I just use my own VC money, I suppose. But it's funny. My point was, it's funny. I'm getting long-winded that you brought that up because I was like, we have to be all in. I was like, the first year, we're gonna. I was like, I got to be the sales rep. I got to be the product manager. Like, if I'm not passionate about it, it's not going to go anywhere because the first 50 are the most important. They're going to help build that culture and believe in you. I've always said is like, especially as like, where my Tom Brady's at, if I'm Robert Kraft and then there's Bill Belichick, I have great managers. Where's the Tom Brady's? You need those great ICs that hold each other accountable, that do these things. And it is from the vision and the passion and in the success. So I've always been very conscious of culture, of people, of leaders, but like, you have to have the Tom, like if you're really good or department's really good, you have Tom Brady's in there. You have the people holding each other accountable to where the managers and the executives don't have to inspire. You already have someone in there doing the inspiring for you. And peer to peer, that's way more powerful than manager or executive to peer.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, it'd be a hell of a recruiting pitch too. Do you want to be the first 10 hired and work alongside this founder team that just had their last exit for $1 to $3 billion and now this is their new business.
Right.
Get some early stage equity and that's a hell of a recruiting pitch as well to get the second time around, get the top notch A players right from the start. And and those early hires are so important, especially in a product company, because those first 5 people are going to be the people that hire the next 50, and those 50 are going to be the people that hire the next 500. And like those people are the ones that need to understand what you're creating. Otherwise, it just gets chaotic later.
But I've also heard, Brad, and kind of experienced this too, to where you level up people, but someone that's going to get you from 0 to 1 million could be different from the person that's going to get you from 1 to 10 and then 10 to 50 and then 50 to 100 and then so on and so forth, to where I've seen a lot of people and read a lot about people failing that hire that person. Like if they're not getting nitty and gritty and dirty, like that great executive is someone you should hire 2 or 3 years from now, not when you're starting, because that 0 to 1 is a totally different person than the person from 50 to 200. They're just it's different. It's like you want those gritty fighters at the beginning. They necessarily don't have the best strategy. Now they may get some equity, but you may have to replace them or they're going to be less important in the future. But a lot of the times you're going to get this person that wants everyone to do everything for them when you're starting something back up or you're brand new into it. That's where I think a lot of people fail, is you're hiring the person you should hire 2 years from now. But on the start, I want to do it in a different way. We had everyone scratching, clawing, doing every creative, stupid thing with not a lot of systems and tools. You can't have all the bells and whistles when you first start something. It's too expensive and you just don't need it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Why do you think so many extremely successful founders come out of Google, because Google's like this massive enterprise machine. And you'd think that a company like that would still, like they've lost the entrepreneurial spirit and they're like this big corporate enterprise now, and they've got all these hierarchies and whatnot. But yeah, there's still so many, and they're like they're an anomaly too. I don't think most large companies have anywhere near the percentage of founders, founder alum. Maybe some other companies in Silicon Valley, but I think Google's exceptional. Why do you have any? And I'm just asking. I'm curious. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I could take a stab at it, and I'd love your
do it.
thoughts. Is I know Bill Campbell had a huge impact on them early with how he helped and managed, and then also just knowing let's go to John Doerr and OKRs, and I know they're very much OKR led. So how they process and how their SOPs are, maybe it's so finely tuned there that when these people learn these skill sets, it's just like OKRs are a huge part of our business, and knowing that Google does them and how they do them, and I'm sure it's much better than how we currently do them. You learning how to build that out, because that's what ties everyone together. That's what gives everyone the purpose, is the objectives and key results. If you learn how to do that at a very high level, I don't feel like it's very hard to go out and do something and build it, because you know exactly how to cascade that down to make sure everyone knows exactly what they're going to do, how they're responsible for doing it. And that's the biggest part is people understanding their roles and their importance to the bigger picture. So that's just my big guess, but I have no idea.
Is that the most important framework in your business? Like more important than anything like agile software methodology or challenger sales methodology or whatever, financial strategies or methodologies? Is the OKR framework the most important framework that BatchService uses?
I think it goes hand in hand. You have to have the talented people to execute it, but I don't think one's more important, or I think one is just as important as the other. If we don't have a vision, a concept, and quarter by quarter, year by year of this is what we're doing, and this is the responsibility for each and every person in our company has an OKR and a responsibility, and understand why they're doing and what they're doing and how it's important to our ultimate goal. That's what ties the whole company together. I think it's the most important thing, but if you don't have talent, it's useless, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but like from a framework perspective, though, like obviously talent, you got people, process, and product, but like from the process perspective, you have frameworks, and you could have like agile methodology for software development, and you could, that's for engineering teams, and you could have, OKRs for, product and business teams. You could have, like challenger sales or spin selling or whatever for your sales team.
Yeah.
Maybe like the executive team follows like an EOS or something like
No,
that.
we all follow OKRs. There's just each department has, a little bit of their tweaks and differences, but everything is tied to the OKRs of the business.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Jesse, what else do you want to touch on that I didn't touch on already?
Man, I don't know. We went through a bunch. It's real estate, software. I'm kind of looking on my list. My CGO gives me talking points and stuff like that on PR stuff. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I don't know. We kind of touch on everything. We've touched on culture, growth, kind of how the best places to work was, super important. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing I've learned is, we kind of started building the plane as we were flying it. But one thing that it's really stuck with me over the last 4 or 5 years on how we've been so successful is the people. It's really been finding the right people, having people passionate, and pouring into their growth and development, and truly caring about them as a person just as much as, someone that works here. And we've kind of done that from the top down, and it's paid dividends. And one of my favorite parts about why I continue to want to do this is when someone comes on and you see the potential in them that they don't even see yet, and then you grow them and they start seeing it and start believing in themselves. That's the most fulfilling and rewarding thing to me is having people start believing in themselves and start seeing the success that they maybe never thought they'd even have. And I think I'm just a softie for that, because I was, working in restaurants, I was this, and then I didn't believe in myself a lot, and I had confidence issues. And being able to, once people believe in you and you start learning and reading and challenging yourself, I think people have a lot more potential than they realize. And it's not as hard as you think to start becoming successful and having some of your dreams come true. And that's been the funnest part for me, is seeing people go through that journey, because I just know what it meant to me. And if I could be a small part of that, it's very fulfilling for me.
So my first guest on this podcast was Chris Wink, and he's been studying entrepreneurs. He has it's like a regional, it's called Technically Media. It's like regional sort of, maybe you've heard of it. It's mostly in like between, I think, Boston to DC and out to Pittsburgh. It's a regional tech publication. They've got all the major cities covered in this area. And so he's been studying entrepreneurs for almost 2 decades now. And we were talking about the 3 dials of luck, skills, and perseverance, and like what plays into success for an entrepreneur. And what would you, like, if you had to put each of those on like a 0 out of 10, what would you say was your 3 dials?
Oh man. Perseverance definitely is way up there. But that's so funny you mentioned that. All 3 of those are a huge factor into how we had success. Like, we were definitely, when we started our first product, it was very much right place, right time, right friends. It just was this, we were lucky. Like, I won't say that like we were successful because of me. Like, part of it had to do with luck at the beginning, but we turned our lucky opportunity into something very special, to where we poured and developed and learned and did and persevered and did all those things. I think it started with a little bit of luck, and that little drop of luck, we grabbed it and we ran the hell out of it, is really what we did, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I love that. Cool, man. Let's close on one more. Do you track your Lamborghini?
I never drive it. Actually, I'm putting it up for sale. I think I've had it for 2.5 years and put less than 2,000 miles on it, but I have not, and I can't, because it has an expensive body kit, it has expensive wheels and tires, and
oh man,
it's also supercharged to where it'd get a little squirrely on the track. It's more of a straight line Lamborghini.
Oh yeah.
It's really fast, but that was something I always thought I wanted or needed, and once I got it, you realize it's just another thing. But it was a cool trophy. I love cars too. I'm just so busy, I don't have time to drive, or I just choose not to. It's obviously not that important to me. It's cool to look at in the garage, I guess. It's like a very expensive, garage decoration, I suppose. But I think someone else should go enjoy it. It's an awesome car. It's super fun, but like, I'm just older now, and driving like a crazy person, doing stupid shit is just not what I'm trying to do today. I just had my first son. He's 3.5 months, and
congrats, man.
Just risk versus reward is like, I have different responsibilities now. It's so weird that I'm saying this, because I'd like.
No, I totally agree with you, man. I used to have, I've had like 3 Z06s, and like did a bunch of like engine tuning and like, deleted cats and all that crazy stuff. And I'm just, I feel the same way. I'm just like, for me, the most important things that I value is like the people in my life, and, experiences like traveling, going places, meeting new people, culture, all that kind of stuff. So I totally agree with you on that.
I don't have it's crazy, but I just, you change, you evolve, and not saying I don't want or will have other supercars. It's just at this time of my life, I don't have time to go track and go, like, I'm trying to build this business. Like, that's my focus, and support my family and support the team members that work here, not to go track my car every weekend. Like, I have to work on the weekend still. I have stuff I need to do. And I love golfing and playing pickleball and doing a lot of active things too, to where that's more fun to me than going and driving a car around. And that's an expensive hobby anyways, that I just don't need to have at this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. I think it was a good episode, and we can close it here. Thanks for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cash flow? Did slow?